Child, if it feels like every hiring conversation right now involves AI, I will not gaslight you. That's because it does. And today's conversation will be about AI as well, but I promise it will be worth your time and a little bit different. Listen, AI is changing how we source, evaluate, and hire talent, but it's also raising real questions about bias, candidate experience, and whether we're actually finding the right kind of people. But, where are my manners? I'm Noel, the head of people operations here at Morning Brew Inc., and this is People Person. Today, we're getting into what AI in recruiting really looks like right now, what's working, what's not, and of course, what HR leaders need to be actually paying attention to. I'm going to be joined today by Sarah Tilley, who's the SVP of Global Talent Management and Acquisition at ServiceNow. All right, Sarah. Hey, girl. Hey. Thank you so much for being a part of today's conversation.
Hey, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, that's totally easy. How are we feeling today? We are excited to talk about AI, scared to talk about AI. What's the total vibe
I
overall?
love talking about AI.
Period.
Yeah.
Same. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah, I'm excited.
so why don't we tell the people in the back a little bit, what is it that you do? What does your day-to-day look like? And then we can jump into the tea of today's conversation.
So I lead the talent acquisition and the talent management function here at ServiceNow. I've been here for 4 years. That's all of the hiring we do globally, and also succession planning, how we support some of our most senior executive leaders in terms of their readiness for bigger roles, internal mobility, et cetera, a handful of other things, but that's my role here.
I love it. Okay. So y'all see why I wanted Sarah to be here, because she knows the things, and obviously we're talking about AI and recruitment overall. So Sarah, before we jump into it, I have like a little bit of a fill in the blank kind of thing I want to hear from you. I'm going to say a phrase, okay? And then you tell me what first comes to mind. Super quick, 1, 2, 3, but I'm curious to know what your take on it is.
Got it.
All right, let's do it. AI and recruiting is making hiring more blank, but also more blank. I'm happy to repeat if you need me to.
It's making hiring more effective, but it's also making it, I'm not going to do a one word here. So it's making it more obvious why the human component is important in these decisions.
Okay, you're breaking the rules, but I like it because I definitely want to.
Sorry.
No, you're totally fine. I'm just teasing, but I definitely want to touch on that in our conversation in a few minutes. So we'll hold on to that thought. Our second one is the biggest misconception company has about AI in hiring is
That AI is making hiring decisions.
Okay, that's a good one. One thing recruiters are still better at than AI is
The emotional side of changing a job and helping people through that.
it's important. We can emote. They cannot. Well, maybe not yet. Okay.
Yeah.
AI is great at finding candidates, but not great at
I think understanding the whole person.
period. Okay. The
Yeah.
hiring process is becoming less human when
I think when you rely on AI to be the layer that handles all of the communication and the interaction.
Okay, last one, because I know I've given you quite a few. All right. One hiring practice that AI is exposing as broken is
People relying on their gut instinct on hiring.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, y'all. So as you can hear and see, we got some hot takes here. So why don't we dive right on in? Okay. So AI is a new conversation in mainstream, but obviously AI has existed for some time now. And I think especially in recruitment, folks can probably share what that's actually looked like. So for the fact of us level setting, Sarah, what has been your experience in seeing AI in talent management and acquisition in the past? Before people cared about the Claudes and the Chat GPTs and et cetera, how has AI existed within the HR landscape?
I'll start with talent acquisition. I mean, I think where we all know that AI is about removing the repetitive, time-consuming task, so that you can bring in the more human strengths and capabilities that are needed. So on the TA side, it's been getting that work out of the way So again, back to the relationship piece, it's about recruiters, recruitment practitioners being able to build relationships, coach hiring leaders, and then I think more thoughtfully assess candidate potential. So um, we've been seeing it in we use Gen AI for interview optimization. So how do you use AI to craft tailored interview questions and evaluate their effectiveness? AI supported candidate rediscovery. So that's basically um, AI powered tools that help talent acquisition teams reconnect with strong past, candidates, applicants, and then I think to your question of where we're going, I think there's a lot of excitement around AI powered skills intelligence platform. So and we and excuse me, AI powered interview intelligence platform. We already have a skills intelligence platform. That's really I mean, we have a proprietary HR skills intelligence system,
Okay.
but there's many that are out there that is really about supporting employees on their career journey. So I think those are some of the things in TA. And to your point, I think we've probably seen some of the strongest use cases for AI and TA over the years. They're everywhere. They pop up. They popped up first and most often. But on the HR side,
Hmm.
depending on how deep we want to go there, there's a lot that we've been able to leverage to again take a lot of that um, repetitive work in order to allow for more strategic human-centered impact, things like employee self-service,
Hmm.
um, a lot on the ops front, right?
A lot of people are feeling like this is like a new conversation. There can be some fear that comes from this. We have HR folks, leaders, professionals who are listening or watching us today feeling like, oh my God, this came out of nowhere. But based on what you just shared, it's been a few years actually, at least we can see within TA in which AI has existed. How far back do you think that might have gone prior to it just being a common conversation in like the last year or so?
We're in the business of AI, so maybe it's a little bit different in our
Okay.
world. It's been how do we automate the things that are less value add that what does our CEO say? Just really kind of the grunt work, the unrewarding work. Like, how do we automate that? How do we ensure that processes are optimized, right? Using technology, fill in the blank with technology with AI, right?
Mm.
Like, that's the whole business that ServiceNow is in. Like, we are a platform that creates workflows that's really about getting the inefficiencies out of the workflow
Hmm.
using technology. So AI has been how we've been doing that for many years. And then thinking about things like our like we have a product called HRSD, and this isn't about getting into all the things ServiceNow, but it's more about the fact that y- we have 85, 86% of global Fortune companies that are using some version of this and have been for years,
Right,
some
right.
version of our platform and our
Hmm.
workflows. That's AI.
Hmm.
That really is about like how do you automate, how do you how do you use technology to find the things that are inefficient and augment that with technology. That's been AI around for a long time. So
Yeah.
I think it is all about how do you design it so that you're getting maximum efficiency, but you have to do it with a human in the loop approach. To your point about this being scary, I think more and more organizations have realized, there was like the big kind of sort of attention grabbing headlines. A lot of that happening, last year, early last year, mid last year,
Hmm.
and things have started to settle so that people understand you just can't do this well without having the things like relationship building, the emotion piece of it that you talked about, the creativity, the judgment. I think about how I use AI, and I think, okay, I've got a lot of experience in
Yeah.
HR. I've got a lot of experience in talent acquisition, and instinctually, I kind of know where we want to take things, right? In
Yeah.
terms of our vision and our strategy. But AI helps me articulate it in a lot, in a crisper way. It helps me see the gaps and the holes in, like, the some of the decisions that we're making. So it is still using the human judgment and the experience,
Hmm.
but it's refining it, and it's making the vision, sort of more actionable in a lot of ways.
No,
So
yeah, I
um,
appreciate that. I mean, it's been AI all along, exactly like you said, just a few words ago, where it's like automation, technology. I think it's just this understanding. People feel like this is just a brand new entity that just came from the cosmos. And it's just like, now we're trying to understand what AI is. But to your point, whether it was you being in ServiceNow or even outside, just sharing, at least in TA for an example, like it's been here. It's already existed in the
it's
sense
been
of,
here.
yeah, the technology has
You
been
think
there.
about a lot of the things in terms of categorization of applicants, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
right? Like, that's
yeah.
been around for a long time. The other thing that I think is interesting has
Mhm,
been a conversation I was just having with some of my leaders earlier today. Was there's a lot of things that are being branded as agentic AI, 'cause that's the hot thing right now, right? Like,
mhm,
agents, but they're actually not agentic. They're some of the standard ways in which AI has been leveraged, uh, Gen AI, right?
mhm,
Which is, I think, probably one of the things I love the most,
mhm,
right? It's and so agentic AI, where it really is truly autonomous,
mhm.
is um, is something that we're still at the beginning stages of learning, right? What's possible there.
Absolutely.
But I do see a lot of, like, branding and marketing of things as agentic AI. They're not.
Wait, hold on. So
They're
are we
to your
falling for a
point.
marketing scheme right now? Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
aren't we always?
Truly and
But
honestly.
I think, to your point, it's stuff that is, like, being rebranded, but these are things that in a lot of ways we're building on tools and capabilities that have been in existence.
Look, AI is a conversation we cannot escape. And it actually may seem very scary and also very new, but I promise you, you've experienced AI before. Whether it's through automation, whether it's through your applicant tracking systems, it's existed. So take a deep breath, take a second and realize, like, yes, everybody and their mama is talking about it now, but as the HR mercenary that you are, you have already come across it. We're just using it a little bit different. And that's what I tell myself when I hear other folks like Sarah talk about AI. It can seem as if, dang, am I not getting to the place in which I need to be in order for me to stay with the times? But trust me, you dealt with worse crises in the corporate space. This will be no different. So buckle up, Buttercup. Let's get to some learning. And I promise you'll walk away feeling like you can do this because you already have.
You know,
Okay, so with that being said, how do you think an HR leader should be looking at AI as a whole, right? Should it be seen as a tool? Should it be seen as a transformation or something else completely, entirely?
I think it's all of the above.
Okay.
I mean, so for example, we've really broken our strategy into what we call two speeds, right? One speed is about uh the foundation, and how do we get some of the fundamentals right? And I think that's where the tools and the processes and the actual actions that have to be taken by a hiring manager, for example, in TA, or a recruiter, it's changing or automating some of those things. And then we talk about speed two, which is transformation. So then how do we ensure we've got the foundations right so that we can go faster and further on the transformation? And with that, it really is about how are you using insights, right? To me, that's where the biggest opportunity for transformation in HR comes from, because I think, um, and you're seeing it more and more in HR, where we are completely integrated
Hmm.
with the business strategy. There's been a degree of that, I think, over the years, right? The role that HR has played. Some organizations, it's been more transactional.
Yeah.
Some organizations, it's been, more critical to how the business operates. But you can't separate what's happening with the talent and the skills that are needed now from what needs to happen within the business. And so it's a lot more integrated. And so I think that it really is going to be more and more about the data the insights that you can use from all of the things that AI brings to your fingertips, and that you can then use to transform the function, but the business more importantly. And I do think that that distinction is sort of important. I mean, and that's not a Sarah Tilley opinion. I think there's been a lot that's been said over the years. Lots of studies, McKinsey, et cetera, would
Hmm.
say you got to kind of have the run of the business, um, sort of distinguish from R&D, for lack of a better word, right?
Okay.
Like, so how are you ensuring that you're getting the speed one, the fundamentals right with AI, but then also how do you then look to the areas of transformation?
So let me make sure I'm understanding correctly. Like, I'm brand spanking new to AI, but I'm excited about it and I want it to be a part of my day-to-day work, or I want it to be, the thing that helps inform the framework of my HR team, which in turn helps business strategy. What is considered the foundations though to make sure that that's in place before I move on to the next step? Is that like a one size fits all of what's considered foundational, or is that like nuanced to
I mean,
company?
it's going to differ by
Okay.
function.
Okay.
For us, like for example, the foundational things could be like, how do you craft a job description in
Oh,
the
okay. We're
right way
talking
that's
that
fully
beginning.
representative, right? Like,
Okay.
how are you ensuring that you're communicating regularly to candidates? These are just some of the fundamentals in TA. Um, that could look very different in compensation, right? Or learning and development. Learning and development, some of the fundamentals are like the delivery mechanisms, right, by which we're going to land some of our learnings and our education. But the transformational stuff and TA is like, okay, now what do we have at our fingertips in terms of what we know about talent that succeeds at ServiceNow or
Hmm.
any organization, right? We have so much more insight into where they come from, what skills they bring. How do we effectively assess those things against the needs of our organization? And it's a constantly, like, AI is about, it's always learning,
Yeah,
right?
it's
So the more you
evolving.
teach it, the
Hmm.
more it learns. And so it's insights, 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 so that you get better and better at predicting success before someone's even hired.
Hmm.
And I think that is the transformation, for example, in TA.
Well, so then how does that affect early stage recruitment, right? Like, I feel like that's starting to also be its own like conversation for like early stage, career finders where they've gone through COVID, they've gone through not the relationship building normally that folks would have experienced, in the workplace. Do you feel like that's creating more opportunity for early stage folks who are looking, or do you think it's creating a roadblock and there may be some cons to that in the near or long term future?
At first, the headlines were, it's going to decimate, right? Opportunities for early in career. You're seeing the pendulum swing now real quickly as organizations are realizing that that is a that's going to have real consequence
Hmm.
to your talent pipeline over time. Not only that, but it's going to have consequence on your strategy to drive to more of an AI native mindset,
What does
right?
that mean? What do you mean
It's
by
going it
consequences to that?
Meaning, if you are short sighted
Hmm.
on having robust representation of early in career talent, then there's going to be a short, mid, long term impact of that. The consequence meaning you're not going to have the pipeline for future leadership, right?
Mm.
Like every early in career, I should say it this way: every leader that we have in our organization and any organization was an early in career talent once
Right.
upon a time,
Yeah, yeah, true.
and so it's like you have to build the talent pipeline for the needs of the organization and for where the organization is going.
Hmm.
The other thing too is the early in career demographic. They do bring a lot of AI native mindset, right? So that helps shape your strategy. That goes back to just some, again, basic proven facts around the more you have different levels of experience and exposure and backgrounds, academic, non-academic, the way people's minds work,
Hmm.
all of those things, the more you have a team that brings all of these different dimensions together, the better the outcome. And so I do think that organizations are, the work itself is changing because of AI, but some work is going to go away
Hmm.
that previously set with early and career talent, but new work is coming. It's already here. It's emerging in its place. And so I think if organizations are smart, they're figuring out, okay, then how do we design roles
Yeah.
now that we can bring early and career talent into? And then what do we need to help them be successful in those roles? What are
Hmm.
the skills we need to like turbocharge them on, right? Whether those be technical or accelerating some of the already human potential that they have, again, around creativity and judgment and um, connecting dots and strategy, et cetera. So all that to say, I think a lot of organizations, if they're smart, we're certainly doing it here,
Hmm.
are thinking about how do you design roles to take advantage of that talent, period, because it's critical for your current day strategy, but also for sure your future strategy.
So you're saying that, like, yeah, the roles are new, but there's also work it seems to have to happen within the people org of like then supplementing the parts that may be missing from those early stage candidates who are now being hired, whether it's, technical or even soft skills possibly that might be, amiss because, of how they're coming through the pipeline. So what are some examples? You mentioned you're doing that at ServiceNow as well in this moment of ensuring that you're not completely being blindsided by some gaps that might show up in the near or midterm. So what are some tactics that you and your team have taken upon, making sure that y'all are hiring the right people, but supporting a new generation of leaders?
I'll start with hiring, right? Before they even come into the door. So I think that we have made it a fundamental thing that AI, sort of capabilities are a part of every role that we hire for. So basically, we've said that, these are some baseline skills that we need for people to have because we do believe it helps us capitalize on AI in a bigger way. For example, curiosity,
Hmm.
right? That's been proven, right? The more curious you are, the more you embrace any new technology, AI included. But I also think that it's about, demonstrated like agility, nimbleness. So there's some baseline things that we've said we are now have as a fundamental part of our how we assess talent. Then there's some things that we're getting smarter and smarter on as we design roles with sort of the new world of work,
Hmm.
that are more technical in nature, and those differ by job or job family or job function, and so we augment with tools, etc. I think AI has helped us to actually ensure that we are reducing bias, like in our process,
Yeah.
right? That we are that we're ensuring that, again, we have really inclusive job descriptions, that we have structured interview questions that are created through Gen AI to improve consistency and fairness, that we have regular audits to evaluate how AI tools are impacting candidates across demographics, so and but then we combine that with human judgment, and that's where we see that, together,
Hmm.
AI combined with human judgment,
Hmm.
it actually delivers fairer hiring decisions than humans alone. Then there's a lot of research that validates that. So I think that we can go further and further on that, but there's a lot in terms of, and also AI helping us ensure we're looking at the whole pool of
Hmm.
talent, right? So and that's another place where AI learns, so we start by ensuring, okay, help us help us map the universe of talent,
Come on now.
and there's tools like that help support candidate rediscovery,
Yeah.
right, across internal and external channels. So that's great, but then you have to ensure it's not too focused on pattern matching, right? So you have to
Mm.
say, okay, the more we learn about what are the skills or what are some career paths or nonlinear experiences that are valuable here, we feed that, we teach it, it learns,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
think there's a lot on the pre-hiring or excuse me, and just, yeah,
Just pipeline building.
pre-hire,
Yeah.
like from pre-hire to actual assessment to interviewing, et cetera. And then I think once they're here, whether you're early in career or beyond, because again, jobs are changing across the board. We stood up ServiceNow University. We stood that up in oh gosh, a little over a year ago, I
Okay.
think. Yes, I think it was early. And that is really about how do we understand what skills are needed. Again, baseline skills.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a partnership with a firm, Workera, which we've used to help us get to baseline skills assessments across the company. So we say, and then contextualize it again by job family, so that we can see where people are at,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can see where we need them to be in certain roles, or where they want to be, right? If they want to take their career this way or that way. And then we use AI in a lot of ways in our learning and development. So, learning and development has just changed so much, where it used to be a pretty static, right?
Yeah.
Classroom
Mm-hmm.
or training experience. Now AI can make it real time, interactive. It can pivot, right? So, all right, I'm taking, I'm in the process of an interactive training. I'm learning this content. It's testing my learning in real time, or it's changing what it serves up to me based on what I'm demonstrating in terms of knowledge. So there's a lot of ways in which AI is transforming our entire learning and development strategy. But it is, to your point, like, how do we more quickly identify the skills that are needed, and how do we more quickly get people those skills?
And it's insane because even with what you're sharing, there is still probably times 10 more that we're not even considering when it comes to the conversation of how AI shows up. And because we're mentioning it's evolving quite literally daily, there are things we're not even thinking of. And so I don't even know if by the time next month comes, the fact that we mentioned L&D, we mentioned TNA, and it's like there's a million more things for us to even realize. And so having curiosity and forever being a student has quite literally been like my final thought for our conversation today. It's like the work is never going to be done. The point of the matter is don't be afraid of it. And
That's
just
right.
realize, like, hey, many times we as HR people, we are the leanest team supporting the largest amount of people. And truly, AI is an ally, not, an enemy in this. And like the more we're curious and open to giving the right kind of data, open to the insights it's giving, it's only going to make our lives that much easier.
I 100% agree with you. And I think that's been true of any organization that embraces innovation versus any individual,
Yeah.
any organization that embraces innovation and moves towards it, as opposed to try to protect yourself from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you win.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll do you no good to do otherwise, y'all. So if you didn't learn anything from my conversation today with my girl, Sarah, don't be afraid. Do the things and continue to be curious. Like, you will be left behind. I pinky the AI rapture will come, and you will be.
That is true.
Yeah, and it's actually here, low key. So you'll blink, you'll realize you've been left behind, and no one wants to be that person, especially in the HR space. Exactly like we just discussed, we are now experiencing a shift where we've gone from transactional to now having an opportunity to be a part of the transformation. Let's not mess up that opportunity. Sarah, overall, thank you so much. I love that you agree. God forbid someone disagrees. I love when I have alignment with my guest who comes on the conversation for the show. So thank you for being a part of that. I'm so appreciative.
Thank you for having me, Kate. It's been so much fun. You are a lot of fun. And these questions were really good questions. I think it really got the brain going. So
I appreciate that. Well, see, look, ChatGPT or Claude could have helped with the questions, but it needed me to ask them. So you see,
that's
folks?
right. It really did.
Partnership
Made it more
in
fun.
action. I appreciate that. Fun is all that we want to have. And for y'all who are listening, we'll tend to have more in the next episode. Thank you so much. All right, y'all, if there's one takeaway from today, it's that AI isn't replacing hiring. It's just changing how we're doing it. And the real advantage is going to come from how thoughtfully we use it in our day-to-day lives. Sarah, thank you so much for the insights. That was incredibly helpful. And for the latest on AI and hiring, you can also be sure to check out the latest reporting from our friends over at HR Brew. For everyone listening, if this episode had you rethinking your hiring process even just a little bit, send it over to us at peopleperson@morningbrew.com. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.